I wasn't supposed to hear it. They were in the kitchen, laughing, wine glasses clinking, the hum of old songs playing low in the background. I had only stepped out to check the laundry. I walked back in, slower than usual, and that's when I heard her voice, sharp, unfiltered, unkind. She clings to me like I'm all she's got. It's exhausting. She's just a needy old woman, a dead weight. I stood behind the wall, motionless. 30 years of friendship unraveled in a single breath. They laughed, and my heart didn't break. It folded, quietly, like an old letter you don't want to read again. I didn't say a word. I walked back out like I had never heard anything at all. But from that moment on, I started listening differently, and more importantly, I started remembering everything she had ever said. Because betrayal doesn't always come with blood and knives. Sometimes it sounds like laughter and feels like silence. I was 35 when I met Carla. We were both in line at the pharmacy, tired and impatient, and somehow the conversation started with a complaint about the price of vitamins and ended with her inviting me for coffee. That's how it began. Nothing grand, no sign from the universe, just two women who had been bruised by life reaching quietly for company. Back then, I didn't have much. No partner, no children, just a job that drained me and an apartment that echoed too loud at night. Carla filled the space with warmth, with noise, with a kind of presence that made it feel like maybe I wasn't invisible after all. We built a routine without meaning to. Tuesdays were for takeout and TV. Sundays were for markets and long, aimless drives. Birthdays, funerals, breakups. We faced them all together. She held my hand through grief. I held hers through surgeries and heartbreak. We were constants in a world that kept changing. People would ask if we were sisters. We weren't. We were something else, something chosen, something stitched together over decades of inside jokes, whispered confessions, and the kind of loyalty that felt unshakable. When my mother died, she was the one who packed the house with me. When I turned 50, she planned a surprise party and cried more than I did. When her father passed, I slept on her couch for 3 nights so she wouldn't be alone. She had keys to my house. I knew her passwords. She called me when she couldn't sleep. I called her when I didn't want to feel alone. There were years when she was more present in my life than anyone else. Years when I thought, if anything ever happens to me, she'll be the one who knows what to do. Carla was more than my friend. She was the closest thing I had to family, not by blood, not by law, but by every quiet act of devotion that stitched two lonely women together. That's why the words I heard that day didn't just hurt. They rewrote 30 years of history. They made me question if any of it had ever been real. I don't think Carla ever understood what she meant to me. Maybe that's the hardest part. You see, I didn't grow up with warmth. My mother loved through criticism. My father loved through silence. Birthdays were forgotten. Hugs were awkward. Praise was rare. So when Carla came into my life with her jokes, her chaos, her late-night calls, just to say, "I miss you," I soaked it up like dry soil in a storm. I gave her everything I never got. Not just my time, not just my loyalty, but the deepest parts of me, my forgiveness, my softness, my history. I lent her money when she needed it. I never asked for it back. I rearranged my life to be there when she had surgery, when she was heartbroken, when she was lonely and didn't want to say it out loud. She called, I came. Every time. I shared my holidays with her when her own family forgot her. I kept her secrets even when they cost me peace. I celebrated her wins like they were my own. I grieved her losses like they were mine. And when I got older, when I started to feel my body slow down, I thought, at least I won't grow old alone. At least I'll have her. I imagined we'd be two old women walking slowly through the park, laughing about nothing, arguing about who forgot their keys again. I imagined hospital visits, birthdays with cake for two, shared silence that felt like safety. I never said any of that out loud. I didn't think I had to. I thought the way I loved her was obvious, but now I wonder, was she ever really holding my hand back? Or was I just offering mine again and again to someone who never truly reached for it? It was a Saturday. We had planned a little get-together at Carla's house. Just a few of her friends, people I barely knew but had smiled at enough times to pretend I belonged. I arrived early, like always, to help her set the table, light the candles, fold the napkins the way she liked, just right, with the corners sharp. Everything was familiar. The smell of her kitchen, the sound of her heels on tile, her laugh, echoing through the rooms like home. Later I stepped outside to water the plants she always forgot about. I wasn't gone long, maybe 3 minutes. But that's when it happened. I came back through the side door, quietly, no one noticed, and I heard her voice. Clear, effortless, cruel. She's sweet, but she's become so clingy, like she needs me to breathe, honestly. Sometimes it feels like she's just a dead weight. I can't take care of everyone forever. A laugh followed, someone else's, and then another. But all I could hear was that one word, clingy, as if loving her, choosing her, had been some kind of burden. She didn't know I was standing right there. She didn't know those words would change everything. I didn't cry. I didn't walk in and demand answers. I smiled. I kept smiling the rest of the evening like nothing had changed. But something had. Something shifted in a way I couldn't undo. That night I drove home in silence. No music, no tears, just a hollow kind of stillness. And when I got home, I stood in my kitchen for over an hour, not moving, just standing there, remembering every moment I had ever chosen her, every kindness, every sacrifice, every time I thought, at least I'm not alone. And now? Now I wasn't so sure anymore. The next morning I texted her like I always did. Thanks for last night. Everything looked beautiful. She replied within minutes, adding heart emojis, calling me her ride or die. I stared at the screen for a long time before I typed back, always. And I meant it differently now. See, I didn't confront her. I didn't scream or demand an apology. That would have been easier. But something inside me had already detached, quietly, like a leaf loosening from a branch before the wind comes. From the outside, nothing had changed. I still showed up, still smiled, still asked about her day. But on the inside, I was packing boxes she couldn't see. I was closing windows she didn't know were open. I began answering her texts a little later, letting calls go to voicemail. I made polite excuses when she wanted to meet. Tired, errands, bad weather. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did, but chose not to ask. Sometimes that's how people avoid guilt, by pretending not to feel the shift, even when the room gets colder. I started walking alone again, started listening to music she never liked, cooking meals for one. I found a quiet comfort in my own company, one I had forgotten I knew how to enjoy. And every time I didn't reach out, every time I let the silence stretch a little longer, I realized something. I wasn't punishing her. I was protecting myself. Because when someone calls you dead weight, you stop offering to carry them. I don't know exactly when it began, this quiet unraveling of what we had. It wasn't sudden. It didn't come with slammed doors or angry messages. It came in small, deliberate choices. One morning, I walked past a photo of us on my hallway wall, taken 10 years ago, arms wrapped around each other, sun on our faces, joy in our eyes, and for the first time, I didn't smile. I just looked at it, looked at us, and I wondered if she had ever really seen me the way I had seen her. That night, I took the photo down, not in anger, not to erase her, but because I needed space to see myself without her in the frame. I started going through the things she had given me over the years, cards, trinkets, half-written notes on the back of receipts. Some I kept, some I let go of. Not because they meant nothing, but because they meant something to me, and maybe never quite as much to her. For so long, I had defined myself in relation to her friend, her support, her second home. But I had stopped asking what she was to me, what she gave back, what she truly held. And once I started asking, the answers were quieter than I wanted them to be. I used to think love meant always being available, always showing up, always giving grace, even when it wasn't deserved. But now I saw it differently. Now I saw that love without respect becomes servitude, and loyalty without reciprocity becomes self-erasure. So I started rewriting our story, not erasing it, just changing the lens. She was part of my life, a big part, but not all of it, not the author, not the ending. I wrote her out gently, a little less space in my day, a little more space in my heart for me. And as I made that space, something unexpected happened. I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. The last time we saw each other was a Tuesday. We met for lunch like we had dozens of times before. Same cafe, same table by the window, same routine. She talked about work, about her neighbor's new boyfriend, about a TV show I didn't watch. And I nodded, smiled, added the right responses in the right places. But something in me had gone quiet. I watched her speak and realized I was looking at a stranger wearing a face I used to know by heart. She laughed, and I couldn't hear the warmth anymore. She reached for my hand, and I didn't reach back. Not out of spite, not out of anger, but because my hand was tired of reaching first. I had rehearsed 100 versions of that goodbye, the tearful confrontation, the confrontation that never came. But in the end, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud, it was just nothing. She hugged me like always at the door, said, "Let's do this again soon." And I nodded, but I didn't mean it, and she didn't notice. That was the part that stayed with me, not the insult, not the betrayal, not the loneliness, but the fact that when I finally walked away, she didn't feel the absence. She didn't text to ask if I got home safe. She didn't call the next week to check in. She didn't knock on my door with coffee or send a silly meme just to say she remembered me. Days turned to weeks, weeks into months, and silence became our new language. It was then that I understood the most painful truths. She had already let go of me a long time ago. She just hadn't said it out loud, and maybe I hadn't been ready to hear it, but now I was. I had mourned the friendship, held a quiet funeral in my heart, and laid to rest all the versions of us that would never be again. She didn't even notice the goodbye, but I did. And for the first time in years, I was finally choosing me. She didn't take much with her when she left my life, but she left traces. A mug in my cupboard she once called her favorite, a sweater she had forgotten on my couch years ago, a birthday card tucked inside an old book with a message that once felt like a promise. And of course, memories. So many memories, tangled in the corners of my home, in the quiet moments between errands, in songs that used to be ours. At first, I didn't know what to do with them. Do you throw away 20 years? Do you burn it all down just to feel clean? No, that's not who I am. So I did what I do best. I cleaned. Not with fury, but with purpose. I opened drawers she never saw. I dusted frames I hadn't touched in years. I let the windows breathe. I packed away the pieces of her that no longer belonged in this new chapter of mine. The things that hurt, I gave away. The things that healed, I kept. Not as tokens of her, but as reminders of who I had been when I loved her. Because that version of me, the one who showed up, gave everything, forgave easily, she deserves to be remembered too. I didn't erase the past. I reframed it. I started planting flowers again, started writing in a notebook I kept hidden when I was too busy being someone else's comfort. I learned to sit in silence without it feeling like punishment. I relearned the taste of solitude, and it no longer tasted like abandonment. It tasted like peace. She left a hole. But I filled it, not with resentment, not with revenge, but with roots, the kind that grow deep, the kind that hold. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks about me. Maybe she'll be in a grocery store one day, passing by a jar of jam I once brought to her table. Or maybe she'll hear a song we used to hum in the car, back when laughter was easy and nothing had broken yet. Maybe she'll pause, feel something shift in her chest, and remember the friend who never stopped showing up. Until quietly she did. But by then, I'll be somewhere else. Not physically, but emotionally. Far beyond the version of me that begged for crumbs of affection. Far from the woman who thought love meant sacrificing herself quietly, just to feel needed. Now, I don't need to be needed. I need to be seen and respected and held with the same gentleness I once gave away so freely. The truth is, she was my best friend, and I loved her in ways she never fully saw. But that chapter is closed, not with bitterness, not even with sadness, but with grace. I loved, I lost, and I learned how to come home to myself. Maybe she'll remember me someday. Maybe she won't. But either way, I'm not waiting anymore. I've already moved on.